Here we are at Least Haunted headquarters. I think it's fair to say it's the height of summer. It's been very hot lately, and we're recording early in the morning.
I got up at 5.
Yeah, you did. I got up at, I think it was like 5:30, and did my Garth's Corner notes, and we are trying to beat the heat. So here we are doing our earliest recording ever, if you don't count the midnight episode when we recorded partially after midnight.
Yeah, no, it is 7:09, and it's already over 80 degrees. The sun hasn't even fully risen.
Yeah, that's right. So we're gonna do this before we
global what? Warming? What? Because yes, I hear everybody at home saying it's summer. It's supposed to be hot. Yeah, no, we missed out on this thing that we normally have here in California called the June gloom. It only happened like 2 or 3 days last month.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, see, normally what happens is it doesn't get hot here until late July and into August. Actually, end of August and into September is usually hotter than July.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we usually have a pretty mild kind of gradual buildup. But we've already seen triple-digit days.
It came all at once here. So we're going to do an episode about stuff that isn't really hot. It'll be nice and cool.
We're going
in
deep.
The ocean. We're going to go deep into the cool, cool waters, because that's where we want to be.
Hello, and welcome to the Least Haunted Podcast, a place where science, skepticism, humor, and anthropology meet to discuss all things spooky, haunting, supernatural, and sometimes.
Sometimes.
I have a hard time saying my M on that word. Sometimes, just the plain ridiculous. I'm your host, Cody Franks, and joining me as almost always is wriggling and wiggling wildly in the waves, wreaking wonder and wrecking whaleboats, wandering wherever whimsy wills.
Garth. That's me, everybody. I'm wiggling around in the ocean.
Whoa.
Well, welcome to this show. It's the Least Haunted Podcast, everybody. How you doing, Cody?
Tired and hot.
We haven't done a spooky check in months. Anything spooky going on?
I did have something, and now I forgot what it was.
Okay, well, while you think about what that was, I'll get a couple things we always like to talk about at the top of the show out of the way. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/leasthaunted. Come check out that if you're interested in supporting us, and also you can go to leasthaunted.com to see all the stuff. We have a Tumblr, notes, all kinds of things.
And the Discord, which is where our all those W's came from for Garth's moniker this week. You can go onto Discord, and there's a little tab. It's called Garth's Moniker, and you go in there, and then you can participate with everybody to create the fun, alliterative titles that Garth gets. And this one came from the I would just say MVP, Ken.
Thank you, Ken. I really love the Discord. Everybody wished me a happy birthday yesterday. That was really nice.
Yeah, it was your birthday yesterday. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
37. My co-host has lived 37 years in a row.
36. 37. I'm 37. Cody, I'm 37.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I'm 37.
I'm 37.
Yeah. You said, at least you weren't 38.
Yeah.
Me.
That's right, old man. So, yeah, it is hot. It is summer. We're going to talk about cool things. I've got a bangin' Garth's Corner song.
I've got a song this time, too.
That last Garth's Corner song, I was pretty proud of the Beatles cover, but I really wanted to do more instrumentation. I was on my way out of town. This one is fully put together. I'm very proud of it. I recorded it in the very last minute of when I was 36 last night. So, yeah, I laid down the piano track. I turned 37 at the last minute of a minute to midnight,
So you were actually born at 11:59.
Yeah, I was
on July 2nd.
This is almost my birthday today, the 3rd. We're recording this on the 3rd. So, I actually recorded it I finished recording at 11:58, the actual track that I used for the Garth's Corner song. So that was the last thing I did before turning 37.
So your actual birthday, the actual amount of time that is your birthday time, is only like a minute long.
Well, I guess, if you want to look at it that way, my birth moment. We all have a birth moment, but if your birthday is the time of day up till midnight, then yes, my birthday is a minute long. That's a very weird way of
I was born at, I think, 10:30 in the morning. Oh,
so you get a 14-hour birthday.
Yeah. My mom is kind of almost like your situation. She was born like a few minutes after midnight.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
she was almost a Halloween baby.
I have a theory, and I think I mentioned this in a previous episode, but it took a while for me to get born, and they were pretty sure I was about to come, and then it took several more hours. So they were had already done up the paperwork. There's a good chance I was born after midnight, and they just didn't want to redo the paperwork. So I don't know. So maybe this is my birthday.
I was born severely overdue, and I almost died when I was born. I think I had the cord wrapped around my neck.
I shouldn't laugh at that, but no, just the idea that you were severely over ripened.
and that, well, I was born on April 17th. I was holding on for that 420. I didn't know what it meant yet in the womb, but I knew someday that would be important.
I'm almost there. It says fetal Cody.
Okay, today's topic. We're getting into it. Yeah?
Okay, let's get into it. Yes.
Today we are talking about Kraken.
The Kraken!
Oh my gosh, how did it take us this long to get to the Kraken?
Garth, what do you know about?
I hadn't really, I've always known about tentacle sea monsters and squids. I don't think I ever heard of the Kraken until Pirates of the Caribbean, the movie. I don't think
you never even saw Clash of the Titans as a kid with Ray Harryhausen's stop motion animation.
Oh, I saw it, but I forgot that was the word they used for the
thing that is not a Kraken, by the way. The thing that shows up in Clash of the Titans, not a Kraken.
All I really recall from Clash of the Titans are those awesome skeletons. Unmatched in scariness to this day in my mind.
I think that's actually Jason and the Argonauts that has the skeletons.
Oh, well, shit. Maybe I never saw the Kraken movie then.
Clash of the Titans has Medusa.
I think I did see that, yeah.
Bubo, the little robot owl.
Oh, yeah, I totally saw that.
Yeah, okay. All right.
That's good.
Anyway, doesn't matter because that's not the Kraken.
Oh, okay.
First of all, also, I want to get this out of the way. It is Kraken, not the Kraken, which you will always see people say. I mean, the line in the movie is,
"Release the Kraken. Release the Kraken."
I'm going to release the Kraken.
And so there isn't the definite article before it. Or is it plural?
It's because Kraken is Norwegian, and the N suffix at the end implies the definitive article the. So calling it the Kraken is kind of like saying ATM machine, or like the Los, whatever.
It's the band the.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So Kraken already implies the, but then we have to ask, well, then what is a crack?
The EN.
The singular.
The EN is the definite article.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
I remember when I was doing all my Norwegian Duolingo for so long. That was like a big surprise early on. I'm like, wow, a lot of these things end with EN, and it turns out no, that's like that's the definitive article. It comes at the end. So I
see.
Charlton Heston, his name Heston is actually Norwegian for the horse.
Oh, Hest. Oh,
Hest is
interesting.
Horse.
Yeah, that tracks. That sounds like him.
Yeah. Okay. So
I always said Kraken.
Oh, Kraken.
But I think it's just me mispronouncing it.
That's actually not.
Is that a thing?
That's actually not that far off because I'm going to explain the etymology of the word, and there is. I think we addressed this in one of our more recent episodes. It might have even been last time.
Is that like languages evolve in that direction?
Yeah, when you have certain mouth sounds, when there's certain, there's like vowels that shift, and there's also consonants that shift.
And they shift in like expectable ways.
Yeah, or yeah.
So you can reverse engineer the Indo-European language.
Yeah.
Or the
so like a good one
language.
is like ka sounds, ka.
Yeah.
And ga.
Yeah.
It's still at the back of your throat.
Yep.
Ka. It's just how you engage the glottis, and so that is a change that can happen. You can also get into.
Well, I don't want to always engage my glottis in the same way. I like variety.
There's also a B that shows up. Yeah, there's
B and P would go together.
B and P, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Kraken means a crack or the kraka. Because they sometimes in the singular the E is left on, and so that would be a kraka.
In 1,000 years, we'll be calling it the Gragan. The other K is going to turn into a G. Yeah.
So a kraka is actually it's a word that is for a twisted mass of like branches. So like twisted roots or the top of a tree that's twisted. It actually comes from Old Norse krok or croaker, which meant hook, but we already have a word for a hook that sounds exactly like croc or crook. It's just crook, a shepherd's crook.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So it means hook. It also means to entangle. And so you can kind of see if this is a thing that has tentacles, you're starting to see like, okay, this is starting to kind of make sense.
Yeah.
It is also on old Scandinavian sailing ships, their anchors. They would take either a mass of twisted roots or they would get the top of a spruce tree, the very top where all the branches came down.
They're applying the Velcro method.
Yeah.
Just like lots of junk, something will catch somewhere. Let's just throw this tangle down into the ocean.
Yeah, and so this is their old anchor, was called a kraka, but also sometimes called a crabba.
Ah. Which,
if we know that the term means to hook, to entangle, to grab, crabba.
Wow.
Grabba. They also grabbing. When you talk about a grapnel hook,
a grappling hook,
grapple. This all comes from This is all from the same roots.
Wow.
These are all cognates.
I love etymology.
When we talk about Kraken, it appears that the name is figurative. It's a figurative name for some kind of creature.
A grabbing tangle.
That grabs, it tangles, it might have hooks. Also, we call like crabs. Sounds like grab, and they got their little clackers.
They do.
That might not be related, but that just kind of...
Clickety-clack.
Clack.
Yeah, I think the name for squid I think the current name for squid in one of the Scandinavian languages translates as coal crab, because it's like...
Coal,
because it sprays ink.
Oh, I see.
So now it's black. And so it's like the coal, but it's the crab, but not because it's a crustacean, but because it grabs you. Right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So that explains the origin of the name Kraken. It is the thing what grabs.
Grabby thing.
And it looks like this twisted mass of roots that we use as an anchor, which we also call a kraken.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few other synonyms that go with it. Horv or a harrow. And a harrow is a tool that kind of, when you are tilling a field, you've already like used the plow, and then you drag the harrow, which makes all the tiny little lines that you can then go and put stuff in.
That's a very satisfying thing to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Japanese rock gardens have similar shaped things where you comb it and you get all those lines.
So I guess why would they call it a harrow? Maybe because also a harrow is probably made from a similar assemblage of branches or something like that. Sometimes they call it the Sequoidea or the sea harrow, Sequoidea, sea crake. Then you get Kraxa and Kraken, Krabbin, Grabbin, and in Denmark, anchor trolled. He's the anchor troll.
Anchor troll.
Yes.
Like, what is it of the sea? Tuna is the
chicken of the sea.
Chicken of the sea. This is the troll of the sea.
Well, this goes back to, there's this ancient belief that
there are bridges underwater. Wait a minute. How does that work?
Well, there was this belief that whatever existed on land had the corresponding in the water. We talked about this when we talked about mermaids.
That's right.
There's also like sea monks and sea popes.
Seahorses,
dogfish, catfish.
Right.
Yeah. So this is a thing. Okay, so what does Kraken do?
Well, he takes down boats with his mandibles or his tentacles. He's got a beak.
The beak, yeah. Well,
he's basically the Return of the Jedi, the pit of the Sarlacc pit.
It's the Sarlacc pit.
But swims around.
The Watcher in the Waters in front of the gates of Moria.
There you go. Yeah.
But in Scandinavian folklore, Kraken could be said to be a squid, but they don't actually say that. Sometimes they describe it as being, they say there's a mass of tentacles, but also other times they talk about horns. It has claws. In that book, the Strange Stories and Amazing Facts book, they described it as being a large crustacean.
Sounds like basically a catch-all for any kind of sea monster.
Well, but the thing is that they actually have other sea monsters that have names, too.
Oh, okay. So the Kraken is not synonymous with just any sea monster. Okay.
There's a map or an illustration from 1539.
Are there tentacles on the corners of the
Well,
map?
it appears to be a fish that has almost like a seal's face, and then all around its head it has little tentacles, but they're calling them horns that are sticking out.
Whoa.
But these horns can grab.
Almost like a Medusa sort of a thing.
Yeah, and then but it's paired up with this dude called the swine whale, which is like a giant pig whale with tusks, which is kind of cool.
A walrus.
Yeah, but they knew what walruses were.
This ain't no walrus. Yeah. That's a swine whale.
Okay, so you're a fisherman. Say you're a Scandinavian fisherman, and you're out fishing in the waters, the North Sea between Iceland and Norway.
Okay.
Because according to legend, it likes to hang out in those waters around Scandinavia, Iceland, Greenland.
It sounds so nice and cool. I'm closing my eyes. I'm feeling the wind. I'm there, Cody. Yeah. I'm there.
And as luck would have it this day, suddenly you just start catching shit tons of fish. They're practically jumping in the boat for you.
Oh my gosh, what a day.
And as you're dropping down your lines for your nets, you realize that you don't have to sink them as far, but it's not because you're catching the fish at a higher
they're not
depth.
Shallower.
It's that the bottom has seemed to come up.
Oh, the sea floor is rising up to meet me.
Yes. So what is happening is Kraken is coming to the surface, and as it does, it pushes fish above it. And if you still have time, you can get out of there. So get your shit and go, and you can outrun it. And as you get far enough away, you will see something large break the surface, and you'll see tentacles writhing around. It's described as being about 1.5 miles in diameter.
Wow.
It is sometimes mistaken for a large island. There's stories of people who come ashore on islands, and then it turns out it's Kraken, and it sinks down and grabs them.
Whoa!
But in this case, you were lucky enough to get away in your boat and see it from a distance.
I can see this giant surface of a jellyfish.
But even though you're outside of the reach of its tentacles, doesn't mean you're safe, because when it sinks back down,
it's going to create a vortex. Of water.
It's called a maelstrom.
A maelstrom.
It will create a maelstrom that will pull your boat down. So in the original Scandinavian stories, it is not using its tentacles necessarily to attack and drag down boats. It's the maelstrom that it causes when it submerges. It'll pull you down. Or if you are unfortunate enough to have landed on its surface thinking it's an island, then it can grab you and take you down.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's
a great monster.
And it was pretty much, when we talk about Kraken, that's what we're talking about.
Okay.
Another thing it did is that it would attract its fish to it by chumming the waters with its own poop. This might be somebody mistaking ink clouds from a large cephalopod, but we'll get to that. Elsewhere in the ancient world, though, there are things that are Kraken-like, but they're not called Kraken. There's the polypus.
What's that, Cody?
Well, polypus is octopus.
Oh, okay.
It's just polypus.
It might not have...
Octopus has 8...
Yeah, octopus has 8 limbs. A polypus has multiple.
Many. Yeah, exactly. Pliny the Elder tells a story of... in Spain, they had these tanks that they would keep fish in next to the ocean. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming it's kind of like there's a harbor. It's
like the Monterey Bay Aquarium.
Yeah, these big stone basins, and it's for storing catch, like live catch for live fish. But he says that they're being terrorized by a polypus, a very large. It's a very large octopus in this case that is seemingly crawling into these tanks to eat the fish. Which actually we know
that happens.
That happens in aquariums.
Octopuses like escape and go into other tanks.
Yeah, and fish.
And like close the door behind them so no one can see that they did that.
Yeah, and so I don't know how big this polypus was in this case. I think he says that it had a head that was as big around as a cask or a barrel.
Wow. That's
so
a
like
pretty
at least
big
a 50
polypus.
gallon. Yeah, that's a big thing. And octopus do get big. Like there's the Pacific giant octopus that is in like the Puget Sound.
How big
the coast
is
here.
that? Pretty big?
It gets pretty big. I think it's about, it can get up to like 6 to 8 feet across from like tip to tip of its.
Oh, if it were to stretch its tentacles out. Wow. And then of course giant squids get a lot bigger, but I don't think they're quite as nimbly-bimbly as an octopus.
I have to give a shout out to friend of the show, Nate Naceda, because I know he's listening.
Hi, Nate.
Him and I, 14 years ago, Nate, it was a long time ago, when we both graduated from college, we took a train trip up to Seattle, and then we went out to to his family has a house on an island out in the Puget Sound. So we went to this island, we're at the house, and man, the water in the Puget Sound is not like our coastal waters here in our bay. It's like there's not enough wave action to create sand, and so it's all rocky, and the tide recedes really far, but then it comes in just as far, and a lot of driftwood. So one night we walked down the beach before the tide had come in completely. We're checking some notes, and in that time it gets darker and the tide comes in. So suddenly now we have to like walk back like half a mile almost on floating driftwood logs, which is very dangerous because you can fall through and get pinched between these logs. It's not a good situation.
You said it was getting dark?
We're using flashlights at this point to find our way back, right? And as we're doing it, and there's this dark, calm water all around us, we start talking about like, well, you know, like the giant Pacific octopus is out there and it will grab you. Like divers do encounter it. It's not really a threat because they're just curious. They come and they'll suck on divers' masks and stuff.
But they won't like choke you. They're just interested to meet you.
And so we're talking about this. I'm like, yeah, and they're nocturnal. So like they really, you know, and
they're
so
all
like,
around us.
So we're already working ourselves up. And then Nate missteps and he falls into the water. And as soon as he hits the water, there's an explosion of activity around him. The water just erupts. And he screams out, "They're all over me!" And I'm thinking, oh shit, he's getting attacked by an octopus. No, it turns out the smelt were running at the time, and smelt is a type of fish. And when they do the run, it's like they're doing this like mass migration.
And he fell into the fish, so they all started.
And they assumed
around.
that he's the giant octopus, he's the predator, and so they go evasive maneuvers, and they just start flying all over the place. But yeah, there was like a half a second where we both thought that he was being attacked by a giant octopus. And those fish
in the shallows with driftwood all around.
Yeah,
these octopus,
yeah.
Octopi.
The polypus got him.
Wow.
And yeah, it seems that as long as people have been sailing around, they've been talking about these large octopuses and squids. It's a good story. In the case of the I almost did it. In the case of Kraken, in that story of it rising up and driving the fish, it's a cautionary tale. I think it's supposed to teach the fishermen that, like, hey, if you like,
look out for maelstroms. I don't know.
No, quit while you're ahead.
Oh,
you know,
if
like
you caught a lot of fish,
you're catching a lot of fish. It's really easy. Things are going great. Your luck will only hold out for so long. For all you know, Kraken's going to get you, and it's going to cause the maelstrom, and it's going to drag you down. So just, you know, get your catch and get out. In all things.
Good advice. Yeah, really.
So it's got a functional myth. So I read some more book.
You read more book? Wait, let's just stop using "the" for everything. Monsters of the Sea by Richard Ellis. Ooh, that is a great cover. There's a guy fighting off a giant squid with an axe.
In a rowboat.
So
this book, it's originally written in 1994, so it's 30 years old now, but this is an updated version from 2004. So it's only 20 years old, Garth.
Oh.
Which is funny because this was written at a time before the living Kraken had been seen. Spoilers.
What?
Kraken is real.
What?
Not in the sense of giant island 1 mile large creature, but this is a cryptid. It's gone from monster to cryptid to accepted
Wow.
We don't call it Kraken, though.
That is a turn that I was not expecting.
But we don't call it Kraken.
Of course not.
Yeah.
That would be silly.
We call it Architeuthis. Architeuthis ducks. So Kraken, it's kind of relegated to the world of mythology and not very well known until the 19th century.
Oh, you mean the myth of the Kraken?
Yes. Yeah.
Is not well known among
general people.
Anybody who isn't
Scandinavian fisherman.
or a fisherman or something.
Yes,
So
yes.
okay, so people who no one would have heard about a Kraken unless you're a seafarer yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. And then it entered the popular culture.
Yeah, and it starts entering the popular culture during the era of whaling.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, there are a few mentions of Kraken. Like, specifically, there's accounts. One comes from a bishop, Eric Pontoppidan, in 1753. He was collecting reports of Kraken or encounters with this creature. His theory was that it was either a giant crab or it could be maybe a giant sea star or a polypus, an octopus. And he kind of wrote about this because he's a bishop, and he like gives his official bishop's statement on it. And then from there, it kind of gets more interest. That's in 1753.
Oh, okay. So he popularized it by hypothesizing about it.
Yeah, he was the Bishop of Bergen in Norway. And he wrote a book that was Det første forsøk på Norges naturlige historie, which was the first attempt at a natural history of Norway. And he wrote that in 1752. That's where he writes about Kraken.
Okay. The bishop's bestseller spreads the word of the Kraken.
I saw that supposedly the earliest mention of Kraken came from a king.
King Kraken.
No. He just wrote about it or saw it. There's this tale of this Norwegian king in, I want to say, the 1100s seeing Kraken, but you'll find people referencing that. And even in the book I read, the guy mentions this, but then they don't relate what the account was or the description.
That seems to happen a lot with the first time you try to find the first instance of something being written down, and it's often someone referencing some manuscript that like we don't have anymore, but they're just saying, oh yeah, this guy mentioned it, but like we don't actually have what that person said. We just have somebody else talking about it. Yeah.
And so that was really frustrating for me because I kept trying to...
You're trying to find the original account.
I want to know what it is, you know? But the idea that it is something that is that's pulling down sailing ships in a Pirates of the Caribbean type situation.
That's what I've been picturing this whole time.
That shows up in 1801, and it's the fault of one guy, really. His name is Denis de Montforts.
Damn it, Denis de Montforts! It's all your fault.
And he's a French. What was the term? He was a naturalist, but there's a specific word for. He was into mollusks.
A French word for a mollusk enthusiast.
No, it's not the French word. It's the official title for scientists who study mollusks.
Oh, okay,
it still is.
Let's let me make it up right now while you find the real word. I think I'd call it a mollusker, molluscule.
No, they're okay. Here we go. He's a malacologist.
That's good.
Malacology.
That's way better. It's the studying of mollusks.
And so he wrote a book in 1802, Histoire naturelle des mollusques, in which he decided to write everything that could be known about mollusks. And he includes Kraken as a giant octopus and relates a story of a first-hand account of a big sailing ship, a full 3-mast sailing ship being pulled underwater without a trace by a giant octopus. And there's a woodcut that is included in an illustration, and this then becomes the quintessential, most famous picture.
Oh, there it is. I've totally seen this.
Yes.
Yeah, this one is clearly like an octopus. He's got the great big body, and he's got two scary eyes staring right at you.
Yeah.
And he's pulling the boat down. Yeah, that's great. We'll put that on the Tumblr. I've totally seen that before.
Yeah, and when it comes to Kraken, I quickly outrun the ancient sources and like what I can find out about the mythology in Scandinavia.
It's more modern than I was expecting.
And it is.
Yeah.
It is something that became more popular as time went on. So you have this happening in the early 1800s, and then we're in the full on in the age of whaling, and it's through this that the next evidence of Kraken comes, and that is that sperm whales are the primary whale that is being whaled for in this time because of the spermaceti.
I've always wondered why they're called sperm whales.
It's because inside of their head they have a large organ that is full of an oily substance called spermaceti, and it's only called spermaceti because it's white and milky. And so they split up and
I did figure that it would come in somehow.
Ironically, these whales kind of look dick-like, Moby Dick-like.
That's why it was called Moby Dick.
So whalers, they would haul up these sperm whales, and usually they'd start cutting them up and starting to get everything out that they can. And inside of the stomachs of these whales, they would find large beaks, like squid beaks.
Oh.
And tentacles.
In the stomachs, not like they ate them, but like that's their mouth.
No. The whales have eaten these things.
Oh, got it. Okay.
And because squid... I'm going to get all into mollusks in a second here. They have no bones, with the exception of a large modified internal shell that's called a quill. The only hard bits they have are the mouth. There's mouth parts, the beak. So everything else digests in the belly of a whale, and what's left over is this beak.
Got it.
Unless they find partially digested giant tentacles. So in 1856, Charles Nordhoff, he's the grandfather of the guy who would write The Mutiny on the Bounty.
Oh yeah.
His grandfather was a whaler.
Okay.
He writes a book called Whaling and Fishing, published in 1856. God damn it. See, I haven't had any caffeine yet. This is too fucking early.
You're doing great, man. This is just a mellower episode because, we're doing it. It's great. You're doing a great job.
So here's an entry from his 1856 book.
Okay.
Sperm whales feed on an animal known among whalemen as squid, but which is, I believe, a monster species of cuttlefish.
Oh.
These, like their smaller congeners, cling to the rocks, the larger species, of course, having their haunts at the bottom of the sea, while the smaller frequent only the shore of bays. Very few men have ever seen an entire squid or sperm whale cuttlefish, and I incline to the belief that most of the few instances on record of their appearance at the surface are apocryphal. Whalemen believe them to be much larger than the largest whale, even exceeding in size the hull of a large vessel, and those who pretend to have been favored with a sight of the body describe it as a huge, shapeless, jelly-like mass of a dirty yellow and having on all sides of it long arms or feelers precisely like common rock squid.
Ah, that sounds like it to me, yeah.
They're illustrating that whalers are talking about seeing this thing and finding evidence of it in the mouths of whales. The idea that Kraken is out there as an existing animal that hadn't been discovered yet, i.e. a cryptid, was pretty accepted. Even Linnaeus, who created scientific nomenclature for species, clades, phylums, kingdom, all that, he had an entry for Kraken.
Okay, so this is like an important distinction to make when you're talking about historical cryptids. Like, were people thinking this was real? It sounds like it wasn't so much like, oh, that's just a legend. People were like, oh, no, that's a thing.
Yeah, the debate seemed to be like, how big is it really, and what does it look like?
I see. Not does it exist.
Yeah. And if it does exist, we're pretty sure that it is some kind of mollusk. And that, so Linnaeus went so far as to create a scientific name for it, but he didn't, he like edited it out of the manuscript. He put it in and then he took it out.
He put it in and then realized he actually had no actual physical examples
He's like,
of it.
I'm fucking Linnaeus. I have higher standards than that. So he pulled it out. But other scientists are still like, yeah, this is a thing. And then in 1857. Where'd he go?
Where'd that Danish go?
Well, it says is
Dane. Where'd that Dane go?
Where'd the Dane go?
Where'd that Dane done gone?
Oh, Steenstrup. I just want to make sure I have his first name. Because he wrote...
Gary Steenstrup.
Anyway, 1857, Danish naturalist Steenstrup coins the name Architeuthis.
They really stuck on the tooth thing.
Well, because toothus, it's actually Teuthus. That is the old name for squid.
Oh, okay, got it. Architeuthist. What is Arca?
Arca is...
archaic? Ancient?
No. Archi. Arch, like archangel, architect.
Oh,
it means
the
the chief or supreme.
Chief.
Yes. So this is the...
Chief Squid.
Exactly.
Okay,
yeah, Chief Squid. And at this point, they start recovering remains of giant squid. They start showing up more.
I wonder why they started showing up more in the mid-1800s.
Well, we're going to find out there's a whole decade, a specific decade, where they really show up like crazy. And the question is why.
Yeah, what's going on there?
So every time they were finding a new specimen, though, they would like, okay, well, it's in the genus Architeuthis, and we'll just create a new species name for it. So at one point you end up with like a dozen or more names. Let's see. Architeuthis ducks, which is if it's the Atlantic giant squid. There's the Architeuthis hartingi, Architeuthis japonica, which is found around Japan, Architeuthis kirki, Architeuthis martensi, which is in the North Pacific, Architeuthis physteris, Architeuthis sanctipali, which is the southern giant squid, Architeuthis stringstrupia, Architeuthis... it keeps going. The list is just fucking long.
Giant squids everywhere. They're all around us.
Spoilers. There's only one species. They're just everywhere.
Oh.
I mean, there's other species of large squid, but when it comes to Architeuthis...
It's all the same Architeuth.
The genus is coined in 1857, and at this point, the debate is settled. It's that Kraken is synonymous with giant squid, Architeuthis. The question is, how big can they get?
Yes.
And what can we find out about them?
Is a squid a mollusk?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm going to get all into squid and mollusks. But first, I think we're going to go
What we're going to have to do is
trawl for some cartilaginous bones.
Let's bone forth the mollusk, cast unto me. Let's be forever and forever be free.
Are you a new parent trying to find your way?
Or are you thinking of becoming a new parent and want to know what to expect?
Or do you not plan on having kids, but just want to know what it's like?
Nobody without kids wants to know what it's like.
I'm Travis.
I'm Stephanie.
And we have just the show for you.
You, Me, and Squeeze, a new podcast where we explore the challenges of being new parents and everything we learn along the way. We'll talk about our experiences, different parenting philosophies and trends, giving our own perspectives, and talking about what worked for us and what didn't.
Let's face it, a lot has changed since our parents and grandparents were raising kids. So we're all kind of figuring out this new frontier for ourselves, and it can feel pretty lonely. So come join us for the journey where sometimes we'll laugh, sometimes we'll cry, but we'll always be real with you.
You, Me, and Squee. It beats listening to your childless aunt give her 2 cents.
Or any of your aunts, really.
What was that laugh? I asked myself. I'm trying to recreate that as much as possible. I don't think I've ever laughed like that in my life. That was new. What is that? This is my new laugh for 2024. New Year, new laugh.
We have a spanking new podcast for your ear holes called Doom Generation.
Available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Later, Doomers.
You see, there's only 2 things that spur the mollusk from the sand, Garth. And one is the waking of all creatures that live on the land.
Tell me about mollusks, Cody.
So mollusks.
I don't know. I know the song that we were just singing by Ween, but I don't really know, okay, so a squid is a mollusk. What else is a mollusk?
So mollusks are the second largest phylum.
There's a lot of different kinds of mollusks.
Yes.
Okay.
Like, it's all. I mean, if you look at like the biomass of species, of animal species on the Earth, it's like insects, and then right after them, mollusks.
So
we're way down on the list with mammals.
Is this the part of the episode where I just start asking you, is this a mollusk? Is a sea cucumber a mollusk?
I don't think the sea cucumber is. That's a good question. Well, see, here's the thing. So within mollusks, there's different groups of mollusks.
Okay.
You have the gastropods.
Oh, I've heard of those.
Slugs, snails.
Uh-huh.
Things that crawl around on their stomach. Gastro, stomach.
Uh-huh.
Pod, or poda, foot. Stomach, foot.
Is a snake a gastropod?
No.
Oh, okay.
Snake is a reptile. It has bones, Garth.
Oh, okay.
So these are invertebrates.
Okay, so I didn't know that. Got it. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
invertebrates.
slowly forming my picture of a mollusk. They're invertebrate.
Yes.
Some of them are gastropods.
You have
'cause they
gastropods.
slither around on their
gastropods.
bellies. Okay.
There's bivalves. So clams, oysters, mussels.
Is that where their intake and output are the same hole? Bivalves?
I think these are actually called bivalves because they have the two
Oh,
shells.
they open up.
They open up,
Okay.
yeah. Not to be confused with brachiopods.
Oh,
Brachiopoda also have two shells that hinge
But
and
they're
act
not
very
related.
much like, they look very much like clams, but they are not
This is
mollusks.
an example of evolution.
Convergent evolution.
Convergent
Yeah.
evolution. Okay, got it.
Basically, every shell that you find on the beach is
yeah.
either going to be a mollusk or a brachiopod.
Okay.
There's like nothing else in the or a crustacean, but that's a
What
different kind
about
of shell.
fish? But they are vertebrates. That's
They're-
not a
yeah,
gastropod.
yeah.
Okay, got it.
And then so you have the gastropods.
How about
Then you have the bivalves, and then you have the cephalopods.
Okay, what's a jellyfish?
That's something else.
Oh,
That's a
okay.
jellyfish.
What's a cephalopod then?
Cephalopod, octopi, squid,
Okay.
cuttlefish. So the basic things that are required for a mollusk is that they will have some kind of vestigial shell.
Mm-hmm.
Even the cuttlefish, the octopus.
Do octopuses have little
it's
shells?
inside of them.
Oh.
And it is very small. And so in the
Not
case,
a very good shell.
no
It's vestigial.
in the case of cuttlefish, did you ever have a pet bird? Or know anybody?
Yes, I had a when I was a little kid. We had a pigeon that couldn't fly named Homerina.
Did you ever give it a cuddle bone?
No,
Do you ever? Okay, if I
I
say
just chased it around and laughed.
okay.
I was like 3.
Oh well,
was-
that's okay.
oh,
That's
yeah,
not,
the
okay.
pigeon and I
that
were-
data is
The
not
pigeon and I
relevant
were
to our...
good friends.
No, that data is not.
Yeah,
relevant.
Homerina.
Okay, did you know anybody when you were older that had a bird in a cage in their house?
Well, I know a guy with a parrot right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you seen the parrot in the cage?
No, the parrot's usually on his shoulder.
Okay, this is getting me nowhere. There's a thing called a cuddle bone, Garth,
Okay.
that you buy at pet stores. You put it in the bird cage. It is made
Does it
out of
chew on it?
calcium,
Oh.
and the birds will chew on it for the calcium and also like sharpen their beaks and grind on it.
I see.
And that is the internal shell of the cuttlefish.
That's why you're asking me all these questions. Okay,
Yes.
I understand.
In the case of a squid, it is a long, flat thing that almost looks like a feather.
Uh-huh.
And they call it a quill because they spray ink. All the cephalopods can spray ink, but not
Really?
all mollusks can spray ink.
Wow. I didn't know ink spraying was so widespread.
Yes.
I figured it was just squids.
They also have one large foot, but it can be modified. And I bring this up because when we talk about squid, when you see all those tentacles, those aren't actually all tentacles. They are arms. They actually only have 2 tentacles.
Oh.
All mollusks have 2 tentacles.
Oh, I think I actually have seen this in giant squid. You get the 2 big long ones and then all the little wiggly guys.
But all those
Yeah.
other arms are actually the same organ, essentially, as the belly of a snail.
Can they wiggle
It
them
is-
individually or do they all kind of go at once? like toes.
They have control of them. They can move them around.
I see. Okay.
I mean, snails can't. In the case of the cephalopods, that is their foot stomach. That's their foot, but it has split into toes, essentially.
Oh, I see. I've always heard of a snail, like the bottom of a snail, the sticky part that they walk on, being called the foot of the snail, which is so funny. So these guys evolved where all the little tentacles are individual versions of the foot.
Yeah,
wow.
The foot is actually just split. But the two tentacles that they have, snails have 2 tentacles. Slugs have 2 tentacles. You usually think they're
snails have 2 tentacles.
You usually think they're extra eye stalks. You look at them; they have 4.
Oh, the banana slug has extra. Yeah, because they've got the eyes.
Only
and then
2 of those.
Only 2
of those are eyes. The other 2 are tentacles.
Oh, so they can grab things with them.
They're sensory organs. They can feel and smell through them too. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So they're a modified sensory organ, but they just looks different. They also have what is called a mantle, which is more of their like mucus body. Some gastropods can like the cowrie shell. You ever seen a cowrie shell?
Oh yeah.
You ever go to Hawaii and
the cowrie shell.
Cowrie shell. Okay, so cowrie shell is from a gastropod, and it will like extend its mantle out of its shell and then like envelop itself. It'll wrap its own shell like in part of its body that's inside the shell. Yeah, it's weird. Man, mollusks. They're
layers
they're
to the
bizarre
mollusks. They're
and
just
weird.
wrapping themselves into themselves. They're in a shell and then they wrap the shell with themselves, so the shell is shelled by themselves.
Squid are decapods.
Decapod.
So they're a cephalopod because they are head foot. Because their head is the foot with all the little toes coming off that are...
That's their head? Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
okay.
Head foot.
Okay, I follow. Okay.
But they're also decapods because their limbs count up to 10.
Oh,
you have 8
got it.
Arms, 2 tentacles, 10
I
decapods.
See. So are we pentapods? Because we got a head and 2 arms and 2 legs. Well, I guess we have spines, so we don't even qualify.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, well, dogs are quadrupeds because they have 4.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So we are bipeds.
But we don't count our heads. We count their heads in the total number.
Yeah, we kind of count it. Yeah.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
We count head is like foot. We count how many feet you have.
Got it.
So they're head-footed. Very widespread. I think there are over 10,000 known species of just snails and slugs.
Wow.
Most of them in the ocean.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. I didn't know there were slugs in the ocean, really. I mean...
Hermit crab shells are sea
slugs. Yeah,
those
are
snails.
Slugs.
Snails.
I never thought of them as that, but yeah,
abalone.
You're right.
Abalone is a sea snail.
Wow.
Or slug with a big shell. Let's see, what else? So by this definition, like clams, oysters, mussels,
they're all slugs.
They're in the same family as slugs and snails.
Wow.
So anybody who turns their nose up at escargot, but then like turns around and is having clam chowder. Hello.
They taste exactly the same, guys. Come on.
Yeah. Man, have you ever seen a snail that's been pulled out of its shell?
Oh no, that sounds horrible.
It's bizarre because they have this long tubular body and organs that wrap into the shape.
I always
of
assumed
the shell.
they would probably wrap as far as they can into the spiral, right? So they got like a long.
So if you were to take a squid and slice open that mantle, which is that kind of sheath that goes over their head,
if the squid were a dick, it's the head of the
that. Underneath of that, you would see something that looks very much like a snail that's been pulled out of its shell. It's just not twisted up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
They have... we're going to move into squid now, because now we're getting to Architeuthis, which is our Kraken.
Okay.
So, never seen alive until 2003.
I remember that.
This
is the giant squid.
Yeah, it's one of the last megafauna, because it is considered a megafauna because it's a giant animal.
That was really exciting when that happened, because we always heard about giant squids, but
and you would find them washed up.
Yeah, you'd find their bloated remains because they live so deep that they're under pressure all the time. So by the time they get to the surface, they're all blorp and they're dead.
Yeah,
dead bloated corpses. But they found a live one for the first time in 2003.
2003 was caught on camera.
Okay.
but still had not been personally seen. It was caught on a remote camera.
Oh, okay.
Then I think they finally saw a living one for the first time in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And it's happened once more since then, maybe 2014.
Is there footage of this?
Yes.
Ooh, I'd like
they've
to
actually
see that.
since gotten footage of one feeding from bait inside of a submersible. People are actually watching through the portal.
Do they, I mean, these are giant squids. Do they kind of act like their smaller brethren?
That's the question. We don't know.
Oh, okay.
We're still figuring
We've
out.
only seen them a couple times, so we don't know.
Yeah, and the ones that we've dissected, like biologically and from how they're put together, very similar to their smaller counterparts. But there's a few other like just kind of differences about them, mainly size.
Yeah.
Their ink sac is very small. They don't really spray a lot of ink.
It's so dark down there.
Yeah,
because
right.
The ink is you spray ink and then escape, and then the ink is clouding things. So
if that was the case, though, why, like other squid, can they change color? Did you know about this about squid?
I know that a lot of sea animals can change color. I know that octopi can change color and texture, but
cuttlefish and octopi cannot just only change their color. They can change the texture of their skin.
Yeah, like
they can add like growths and shit.
I remember seeing what was that great movie, My Octopus Teacher? Did you ever see that?
No.
That was really good. It's this guy who befriends an octopus in South Africa, and there's all this footage of the octopus, and like it'll camouflage itself and like scrunch into different shapes and like change its texture and look just like different kinds of rocks within like a second. It's amazing.
Yeah. So when the dead Architeuthis that we have found are usually a reddish color. And even going back to ones that were being found in the 1800s that were being washed ashore, those were also usually described as a reddish to maroon color.
Mm-hmm. That's like the classic squid attacking the whale.
Yeah, your Apollo 18.
Apollo 18 album cover. It's a red or a burgundy or something. Yeah. Pink.
But that might just be the color they turn when they die. Also, they have like a very thin outer skin that usually gets ripped away when they're dead. So you'll see a lot of pictures online of ones that have red patches, but there's also big white patches, and it's because that outer layer of skin has been stripped away. But they still have these cells, these color cells that they can expand and contrast in their skin, and doing so changes the pigment in it. And so we know that they can do this.
Yeah, why would a giant squid living in the dark depths of the ocean need to change its color? There's no light down there, or almost no light down there.
They also, some squid, I can't remember the Architeuthis was amongst them, have photo cells that actually generate light. They can flash lights too.
Okay, well, there's a lot of deep sea creatures that lamp rays
but it's like different than the bioluminescence. I think it's it's some other organ that
okay, so there is light down there, so there would be a reason to be able to change your color. Okay.
They have the largest eye of any extant, that means living species on Earth. The second largest in recorded fossil history.
How big is the eye?
18 inches across.
Wow.
And it's very much like a human eye. It has an iris. It can, focus. You see like octopus eyes, and they kind of have that, like, they look more like a goat.
Oh yes, yes.
All the cephalopods have very mammalian-like eyes, but the Architeuthis has, I think, 2 lenses that it can like move around to. Yeah, it's incredibly complex, giant eye. So it's seeing things.
Yeah, there is a little bit of light down there. Otherwise, it would probably not have developed eyes.
Yeah,
or would have lost the eye.
How deep they live is another question. We don't know exactly how deep they go, but we do know how deep sperm whales go, which is pretty fucking far down, and sperm whales are the primary predator of Architeuthis.
So they really do fight?
Yes.
Oh, cool. I thought that was just a fanciful idea.
Another piece of evidence on those whales that whalers were pulling up were scars in the shape of suckers.
Whoa.
Because the squid... So an octopus sucker is soft. Squid suckers have either little chitinous teeth They either have serrated teeth
Eesh.
or in some cases actual hooks.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. Naturalists examining the sperm whales in the 1800s speculated that this giant squid could become hundreds of feet long based on ratios of sucker size to length, and they based it on the scars of the whale. But this is actually not very accurate because the scars can increase in size as the whale grows.
Yeah, that's assuming a lot. Like, well, the suckers are this big, and we know that the smaller ones are like that. So extrapolating, this is hundreds of feet long. Yeah, there's a little bit of guesswork in that. Okay.
Yeah. One of the guys who was a fan of that theory in more recent times was Bernard Heuvelman, who we talked about.
I remember Heuvelman.
We talked about him in the Bigfoot episode. So I mentioned in the 1800s that there was a specific decade where a lot of squid were washing up, and that is from 1870 to 1880, and particularly around Newfoundland, Canada.
Oh, Newfoundland.
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 Newfoundland. Yeah, Newfoundland. Yeah, there were dozens in a 10-year period that were washing up on the coasts.
That seems like portents of bad things. If like all these sea monsters like are suddenly like washing up on the coast, what's down there?
Yeah, this is also a time
Cthulhu
when
is arisen.
There are some apocryphal stories of this time of people saying that their boats were attacked by them. But then again, if nobody had actually seen the living Architeuthis,
I have a hard time imagining it would function very well.
Yeah,
at the surface level because it's so deep. Like, could they even live up there? I think they'd explode.
So the thing is, they have a high ammonia content in their tissues.
Oh, okay.
There's, well, first of all, mollusks, I forgot, going back, copper-based blood.
Copper?
Yes, we are iron blood.
Yeah.
They are copper-based blood, which is, so mollusk blood is blue.
Whoa.
When it oxidizes, it becomes even more blue and green.
Wow.
Which
I thought all blood of all creatures was iron. Tasting.
They're called it's cyanoglobin. We're hemoglobin, it's cyanoglobin. Pro tip to all you gardeners out there, stop using slug poison. Don't bother with your bowls of beer, because that also kills the slug. Because of their copper-based blood and the fact that their tissue is covered in mucus and membranous, like they're soft and wet, if you place copper wire around your plants, when they touch it, anybody who has a filling who has touched metal or foil to your filling, it's the exact same response.
Whoa.
So it gives them like an electric pain response, and they will change directions and avoid it.
Wow.
I mean, it hurts
so cool.
them, but it doesn't. But it's a sensational hurt. It doesn't cause lasting damage. It doesn't kill them.
Well, that's great.
But then you have a bunch of meth heads who are going to storm your garden and steal all your copper.
All right,
so,
well, Yeah, I think it's worth it. Copper, you slug people, that's great.
Copper.
Good advice, Cody.
Mm-hmm. Where was I going with this?
I really want to see a slug trying to crawl over copper and going, ah! and then slowly running away.
Most snails and slugs are a lot quicker than you think, too. If you sit down and just watch them.
Well, it's the hare and the tortoise thing. Like, it looks slow, and then you look back at 20 minutes later, and it's gone, like, a ways away. Yeah.
That mucus, they use it to slide around, cut friction.
They're tenacious little guys.
So they got ammonia. That's what we were talking about. Ammonia in the Architeuthis, which is one reason why you can't eat it. People have tried. They're like, well, calamari. I like calamari. We could solve world hunger. Feed everybody giant squids.
Oh, man.
But it turns out, no. They have an insane amount of ammonia, which actually works it makes them neutrally buoyant in water.
Oh.
So most sea creatures that swim, like fish, use a swim bladder to control...
Like a submarine.
Yeah, how deep they can go. With the squid, their tissue itself is just neutral.
Wow.
So they can swim down and it'll just stay there. They can, wherever they direct themselves, it'll just stay.
Amazing.
They navigate...
The hummingbird of the sea.
Yeah, hummingbird of the sea. They move around through jet propulsion.
Oh, that's so cool. Wow.
This is all squids and mollusks.
Yeah.
Or not all mollusks, all squid and cephalopods.
So they like pull water in and push it out?
They pull water into their mantle, and then they constrict the mantle and force all that water out through a jet. Now, here's the thing. Inside that mantle are their lungs. So they are incredibly efficient at pulling oxygen out of water because just to move is to breathe.
So they're breathing and moving in one motion,
Yeah.
and that's the standard. Imagine an octopus moving. It goes and like flex,
it's like, what
flex,
if you,
flex.
What if you couldn't move without breathing at the same time?
You'd be moving all the time.
Yeah. I mean, they can move their tentacles and shit, but I mean like walking. So the question about why were they washing up in that one decade? And it has to do with where are they found in the ocean.
Newfoundland.
So fun term, when something, another word for being beached, stranding.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
Another name for a beach is a strand.
Oh.
In Norwegian, it still is strand.
And whales get stranded if they get beached.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when these squid wash up, they call it a stranding. Although they sometimes find them floating out in bays, but they're dead.
So if you're ever stranded in the desert hitchhiking, you've actually been beached. Does it go both ways?
Well, because the desert's not a beach.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's sandy, but
It's
okay,
sand.
fair enough.
Okay, so the theory is that they were following colder water currents that were pulling them in too close to shore, and they would rise up too high, and they would get stuck there for some reason, and then the change in pressure kills them. But
so they are neutrally buoyant, but they still have the pressure thing. They can't get that.
Yeah, that's the theory anyway.
Oh.
Because almost everyone we find is dead, the surface, or it's a surface and it's still alive, and then it quickly dies.
Oh.
So maybe they come to the surface to die. There's a poem about Kraken by Tennyson that is, I don't know, maybe I'll include it at the end, but it ends with Kraken coming to the surface to die.
Is it a short poem? I'll read it at the end if it's not super long.
I got it in the book.
Oh yeah, no, we can read it at the end.
I got to get more squid facts in about this giant.
You got a lot of squid facts in here.
But it's not even. Oh, okay. So there was a guy who was interested in this phenomenon from the 1870s, and he speculated that it had to do with, and this is like in the 1930s, he said it was about a breakdown in a current. It reversed, and it drove that cold water up, and it pulled the squid with it. He predicted that this current change would happen in intervals, and that it's 90 years. So based on when he was coming up with this, the next time it would have happened would have been in the decade of 1960 to 1970.
Oh, okay. And did that bear out?
He was right.
Whoa.
Yeah. Not to the extent of the 1870s.
That's pretty compelling.
But a bunch did in the same area. Also, the same phenomenon was happening in the South. So New Zealand in the 1870s was getting a lot. But that's a whole different ocean on the other side of the world, different hemispheres.
Right.
Southern hemisphere, Western hemisphere. It's
Northern hemisphere and Southern hemisphere.
Yeah, and so you have Newfoundland off the east coast of Canada.
Right.
And you have New Zealand, like all the, but yeah.
Well, it sounds like this is a global cyclical thing. Yeah.
Now, how big does Architeuthis get?
Yes, that's the big question.
Yeah, how big
Everyone's
does
been
Kraken
burning to
get?
ask this.
Now, when they die, their tissues relax a bit. And so the measurements that are given for a lot of dead giant squid is wrong because it becomes more elastic and they can spread it out. And so it appears bigger than it really is. But when it's alive, that tissue is more tense and constricted. Okay. Although those two grabby tentacles, those still can fucking really go. Sometimes up to like 20 feet or more.
Wow.
But the accepted size... See, there's the giant squid, and there's the colossal squid also. So they're two separate things. The giant, one is Architeuthis, and the colossal squid is Megalocranchia, or Cranchia. Architeuthis can get about 33 feet long.
Wow.
Well, there's an estimate that the maximum size can be 39 to 43 foot long. For females, because also they have sexual dimorphism.
Oh,
so
okay.
The females are bigger than the males, and the males would be about 10 meters or 33
Now, when
feet.
we say that long, because I'm picturing what the squid is shaped like, there's the body of the squid and then all the little
This is going from
arms.
tip to tip is 33 feet.
How big is the body then?
The mantle is the body is about 6 foot 7 inches long.
Okay.
They said the length of the head of the squid, excluding its tentacles, but including the arms and the head, rarely exceeds 16 feet.
Okay. So, yeah, so what you were saying before, that's like the maximum size. Yeah. But most of them are about 16 feet. Okay.
Yeah, and then add that extra tentacle reach. But if you're talking about like body mass, the majority of the body mass, about 16 feet. The colossal squid gets bigger, but behaves it behaves differently. The colossal squid is only found in the southern Arctic Ocean. Around Antarctica. And they know that it is more of a passive grazer, it seems to be, where it just kind of like drifts around and then like with its tentacles out, and then if it feels something, it just goes, and it grabs it. Kind of like jellyfish style.
I'd never heard of a colossal squid.
Yeah.
And they're a little bigger.
Yes. Okay. But colossal squid cannot be Kraken, because it's only found in that one ocean.
Yeah.
Whereas you're finding Architeuthis all over the place. And remember I said there were like dozens of species.
Right.
Well, we now know through genetic analysis there's just one species.
Wow.
It's just that widespread.
Does that mean that they just move around a lot? Because if they didn't travel very far, they would naturally evolve to be different species. So if they're still all the same species, that means they go all over.
They move all over, and there's a lot of them. There's estimates that it's in the millions because they base it off of the sperm whale population.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
They're like, well, yeah, the sperm whales have to be eating, if they primarily are eating these giant squid, and based on their body size and how many there are, how often they eat, we can figure this out.
Wow.
But there's also this weird thing about the larger an animal gets, the less calories it actually takes to fucking. I know.
Yeah,
it seems counterintuitive.
It does, because like energy in, energy out. If it's bigger,
if it's in the ocean.
Yeah, it must be different.
They estimated that the Architeuthis, the giant squid, could probably get by on as few as 50 calories a day.
That's crazy. So it's just not moving around a lot. It's not using a lot of energy.
It doesn't take a lot of energy because it breathes to move, and so
it's just really efficient.
It's really efficient at the size.
But and yet it can fight whales.
Yeah.
Maybe not very well, but it still gets its suction cups on there. I'm just imagining, now that we know it burns so few calories, like the image of the whale fighting the squid is probably more like the whale just like going after the squid, and the squid like kind of struggles and then gives up.
Stop.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
What do the giant squid eat? Are they man-eaters? Would they eat a man?
That would be pretty big, but maybe a child.
Well, here's the thing. We can't conclusively say, well, at first we had a hard time figuring out what the hell they were eating because of the nature of how their mouth works. And this is horrifying.
And what is there to eat down there?
Okay, this is true of all mollusks. It's another thing that they all share, and it's going to terrify you.
Okay.
They have a thing called a radula.
What's a radula?
The radula is another hard bit. It is their tongue.
Oh.
And it is hard. It's basically, imagine like a piece of macaroni.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. But on the outside of the outer bend are really sharp, razor sharp rasps. It is a rasp that rocks back and forth in that little macaroni
to chew.
way. So what happens is the beak on the squid bites in. And while you're alive, by the way, the prey is living. It's holding it tight with its arms.
They call this a tongue, but really it's a grinder.
Yeah, and so the beak bites a chunk, and then the grinder grinds it up and forces it down into its mouth or into its esophagus.
So you're basically
pureeing.
Grabbed by pinchers, and then you're grated like cheese.
Yes,
and all of the grated parts go down the chute. Oh,
yeah. So by the time it gets to the stomach, it's already so ground up and mushy. Like you're not finding bones or anything. So you'd have to use DNA analysis to figure out what the hell's in there. And it seems to be that they're cannibals.
Oh my god!
They might be eating other squid. There's other large squid who aren't the giant squid. There's like the Humboldt squid gets pretty big. I think it's about 10 feet long. So the oceans are full of many species of giant squid. So they seem to be eating other giant squid, maybe other Architeuthis, and certain deep sea fish like orange ruffy. Don't eat orange roughy, people. Please don't.
Okay.
It's not sustainable.
Okay.
It's a fish that doesn't reach sexual maturity until it's 70 years old.
Wow.
It cannot reproduce until it's 70. And it's eaten by squid, giant squid. So it's like,
Boy, that's
a
hard time.
A hard time.
Being a roughie.
There are some squid that have venom sacs. The Architeuthis doesn't. But there are some who are venomous. They have a powerful neurotoxin that when they bite you with their beak, it seizes you up so you don't struggle while it grates you away.
It sounds to me like a giant squid could totally eat a person if it wanted to.
If it wanted to. But I don't think it ever comes that far up to the surface to feed.
Yeah, the body would have to float down to it.
Yes.
Yeah,
so a dead person, maybe. We don't know if they... Well, it did come for unlive bait, so it does go after dead stuff. But... other things that eat it, though, besides other giant squid, the sperm whale, as I mentioned, pilot whales, southern sleeper sharks, and orca. But orcas are dicks. They'll go after anything.
Wow.
Like I said, they estimate that there might be as many as 131 million giants. Oh, no, they estimate that sperm whales eat 131 million giant squid annually.
Oh, my gosh. So that is the real life Kraken.
Yeah, that
Wow.
is it. That's Kraken. You can see pictures of it. If you want to know more about giant squid,
You barely ground up and swallowed the surface
but we're
of
still
this
learning.
topic.
Yeah, well, it's also we're still learning about it. We've only seen it alive a handful of times. There's no living specimens that have been able to be observed in captivity.
There don't seem to be a lot of things left in the natural world that we don't know about. So anytime there's a frontier, it's exciting to imagine something since we know so little about this giant sea monster that lives at the bottom of the ocean.
They're also probably, if they're like other cephalopods, extremely intelligent. The rank of intelligence is like octopus, cuttlefish, squid. They're not as smart as octopus, but they're not dumb either.
Okay.
So they are also...
Octopi are really smart.
So you hear about some of these encounters where they drag up these giant squid that are still semi-alive and dying, and they just start fucking hacking them up and attacking them. And it's just dude, leave it alone, man. Anyway... That's the giant squid. If only there was some way to protect your ship from giant squid attacks at sea. Something you could do, I don't know. Maybe you can help me with that, Garth.
Yeah, let's explore Garth's Corner and see what people did to protect against monsters in the ocean.
I need to plug in my computer.
All right, you plug in your computer. I'm gonna play the Garth's Corner song here.
Oh, so I can hear it.
Yeah. A rare instance of me actually finishing it early. Oh, I saw you by the wave machine, cutting through the mist. You were bound forward and bracketed above legs that don't exist. You were searching for the chords to play an octave below Neil Young. The gold rush ended long after you'd been bleached by the sun. This Garth's Corner came before your seagull hit and swim. So yeah, that was the Garth's Corner song. It'll be even better on headphones. I just played it for you on the laptop. But yeah, so we're gonna be doing this about different sculptures on the fronts of ships.
Yeah,
that's what the Garth's Corner song was about, and I imagine they hit a lot of seagulls because they're the front of the ship.
That's Allison going to work.
Oh, hi, Allison.
I bet.
Oh, is she doing summer school?
Yeah.
Ah.
It was.
So, welcome to Garth's Corner. I was going to do it on mermaids on the front of ships, but that was just one of so many decorations, and we've already talked about mermaids in general, so there's not a lot more to say. even though the Garth's Corner song had a mermaid in it without any legs. But in general, there were all kinds of figureheads on the front of ships throughout all of history. So basically, it goes back to the beginning of ships, the very first ships we know of.
How do we know which is the front?
Yeah, exactly. Although they would often have artwork on the front and the back. So really early boats were like canoes, and they were either hollowed out from tree trunks, or it was like a skin of some animal stretched over branches, and you could kind of make a floating thing. And even those ancient ones had decorative figureheads, like back in the Stone Age.
Wow.
Yeah, there was one of the earliest ones was from like thousands of years ago in Finland. It was a small elk carved out of wood. And they just found the elk, but there was reason to believe that it was stuck onto the front of a boat.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so this is like it's just like a thing that we've always done, apparently. In the West Indies, the Carib people, where the Caribbean came from, they used human arms and legs and body parts as figureheads. So they weren't creating art. They were just taking their enemies' bodies and sticking them on the fronts of ships. By one, that is
a colonizer's account.
I was gonna say that is a colonizer's account, and so
that's where we get the term cannibal from too.
There you go. So that's not necessarily 100% trustworthy, but possible. I don't know. So in the late Bronze Age, the Greeks were drawing eyes on either side of their ship.
Yep.
And we've talked about the evil eye recently, so that's going to come up here. It's like, and I guess it was so common that like old boats had eyes drawn on either side, so it kind of had a face. So like old boats had faces, like they were all Bodie McBoat faces, just like looking at each other. And the whole idea was that the eye would ward off the evil eye, and then give your enemies the evil eye.
I said the term in one of the last episodes. Apotropic magic.
There you go. Yeah. So a lot of this, as Cody did, you did a wonderful segue, by the way. Like, how do boats take care of giant squids? Well, through magic, and that's essentially what this was like an intimidation tactic, and also it was believed to help. And these were often put in ships that were like going to war and doing battle with other ships. The Romans copied this as well, and they either painted the eyes on, or they made them out of marble and kind of like stuck them onto the sides of boats. The ships were designed to ram each other.
Yeah.
And so, they had these giant rams in the front, and they would often make decorative animals out of the rams. Can you guess what kind of animal the ram was shaped like? The ram?
A lion.
I was gonna hope you were gonna guess ram, but actually pigs, boars, wild boars were very common. Yeah. So moving on to the Middle Ages, the eyes thing kind of went out of fashion.
Then it was dicks.
Yeah. Well, that was the funny thing. It's like, why don't they just put dicks on the front of it to ward off the evil eye? But there are other things that ward off the evil eye, which is your own evil eye. The Byzantines developed, apparently, I just learned about this, a sort of a proto-flamethrower that they would shoot out of their front. Did you know about this?
Yeah, Greek fire, yeah.
It's that's right.
Technology,
yeah. And so we don't know exactly how they did it, but they had like sculpted animals on the front of their ships with mouths open, and fire would shoot out.
Yeah.
Pretty great, yeah. And Vikings.
Of course.
Yeah, there's a very lavish example of a Norwegian ship. It's a Osberg ship that has a prow and a stern that swoops really high. I think it's like 15 feet. I think it said 3 meters or 5 meters actually.
That's a big. It's a big ship.
Yeah, and that one is not an example of like old Viking ships. This is like a fancy one.
Yeah, this was a burial ship. It was buried with a king.
Yes, and it swooped up really high. It didn't have a sculpture of an animal on it. It had a big curls, like it would swoop way up, and then it ended in a little spiral. But along the front of it was decorated and carved all of these sea monsters and different kinds of animals.
Yeah.
So that's like decorative front of a ship. Okay, so those were all leading up to actual figureheads, where you have one creature or something on the very front of a ship.
When you think about pirate ships and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so the Vikings seem to be the first people to do this kind of a thing. They had dragons, birds, lions, sometimes humans, sometimes all kinds of different animals. The Bayeux Tapestry shows Norman conquerors and their battle fleets there were whole fleets that had different figureheads, so it was a way of identifying ships as well.
Okay.
So if you had a whole fleet that were fighting together, you could tell, oh, that's that boat because of the figurehead.
Yeah.
Sometimes when they made landfall, they would take down these figureheads, and they would even bring them into battle on land. If they were going to have a land battle, they would bring them on as like a cool intimidating sculpture that was like
some
their
kind
banner.
of totem.
Exactly. And once you get into the age of imperialism in the 1600s, they just got bigger and more elaborate, and it's basically propaganda at that point, because like the European conquerors were taking over the whole world, and they were going on these giant sailing ships that were incredibly ornate and decorated and would have huge figureheads on the front. There's a bunch of examples. Oliver Cromwell on a horse. There's whole scenes depicted, not just like one mermaid, but like Abraham sacrificing his son, Aphrodite and water nymphs, and basically the entire painting of Venus on a half shell in sculpture on the front of a ship.
Wow.
Yeah. Naked Scandinavian giants holding clubs.
Sweet.
Yeah. The bow and stern paintings were popular too. So it wasn't, I'm talking about the front of a ship, but there were just as many lavish sculptures on the back.
Yeah, you usually think, I could think of watching, pirate movies and stuff.
Basically,
the back is like flat.
Yeah.
It usually has ornate carved stuff like over a window, and that's the captain's quarters.
Exactly. That's right. And so, both pirate ships and like, the Dutch East India Trading Company, like all
pirate
these
ships are usually stolen ships from those.
Exactly,
other guys, yeah.
but they were all doing it, and it got so elaborate and weirdly shaped that like they weren't often sailing as well, because they weren't very aerodynamic with these crazy, very heavy things on the front. So in 1704, England actually starts to restrict what you can put on the front and back of a boat. So they sort of fell out of fashion. The French kept it up through the rest of the 1700s, but eventually that ended. And more modern vessels don't even really have points in the front of ships. I mean, you look at like modern naval boats, they don't have any decorations like that.
There's usually a weird big bulbous thing under the water.
Yeah.
They found out that if you put like under the water a rounded thing, it cuts down the resistance and makes ships go.
Counterintuitive.
Yeah,
that's weird. But so that's sort of, it's one of those art forms that has died, and yeah, it's silly and it got way out of hand, but I really wish we would bring it back. The figurehead.
Well, then you also had hood ornaments on cars. It's
sure.
kind of like a...
I think the modern equivalent would be like truck nuts. Although that's the back of the...
Yeah.
That's the back. But yeah, hood ornaments on cars. Any kind of little decorative thing on the front is a neat thing. Yeah, it's... Well, I guess one equivalent would be... I've seen like painted faces and eyes on like helicopters and stuff.
Oh, well,
in
yeah,
the military.
yeah, and then like fighter planes in World War II with the
Exactly.
shark mouth.
Yeah, the shark
like,
mouth. So that would be sort of the modern equivalent of this ancient tradition that has gone back as long as people have been making boats.
But it should keep Kraken away.
Yeah, we should. And there were so many missed opportunities. I feel like, especially with the Apollo missions, those big rockets that would go to the moon, we should have been decorating those.
Oh, well,
with like,
it
was just like white and black and like USA or United States written on the side. Like we could have really jazzed those up.
Now you just have Bezos in his rocket that looks like a dick.
Yeah, but he doesn't even paint him. That's what I'm saying. There's, I don't know. I miss the old. I think I'm just nostalgic for opulent, unnecessary decorations.
Oh, it's still happening.
Yeah.
It's just too expensive for our budgets,
Yeah,
Not for this regular folk.
Oh, well, I guess, but I mean, even the people who have the budget, like, why aren't you decorating your rockets, everybody? Anyway, this has been Garth's Corner.
And another thing.
Anyway, most of that info I got from a couple different sources, but the chief one was a really good YouTube video that gets into even more depth, and I'll shout this guy out because I got so much of this info from him. It was Carved Works and Figureheads, the History of Ship Decorations on YouTube. It's the Baltic Empire channel, and I have now subscribed to him because it's really good. So we'll put a link in the show notes to that video.
I read many articles. I read about 100+ pages of a book.
Yeah, you did. As always, you did way more research than I did.
I watched a few different documentaries about mollusks and squid.
Wow.
I
read like 3 articles online, and then the Wikipedia had kind of cobbled together some notes.
No,
well done. You did a lot on this.
There's so much that I had planned on talking about that didn't even make it, but I'm tired. We got up early.
You did good. We did good, and I think this is definitely the earliest episode we've done. I think now that we're getting to the end of the episode, Cody and I are waking up. So thank you for being with us. Hopefully it was entertaining. Sorry it was a little low energy, but maybe that's kind of nice.
We got to now turn around and get it edited and up in about 2 days.
Okay.
2 days.
All right. Well, I can share.
Tomorrow's 4th.
Oh, that's right.
And this comes out on the 5th.
There you go.
So if you're listening to this on release day, did you blow your hands off yesterday? If you're an American,
watch out.
Did you enjoy the last 4th of July you're going to get without a fascist dictatorship? Sorry, I've just been
You're doing yeah. It's the times we live in are very. It's like suction cups everywhere, man.
And then this morning, I fucking hate Elon Musk.
We're almost done. We're almost done with the episode.
I hate Elon Musk so fucking much. So, those Starlink satellites, they're going to deplete the ozone layer because when they come down, they're full of aluminum oxide and they burn up in the atmosphere.
How much does that really deplete the ozone layer? They're little rockets.
It's the satellite burning up.
I mean the satellites. I misspoke.
They're getting larger and larger, and they estimate that at peak, the idea is that they only have a shelf life of 7 years and they burn up. They're disposable satellites he's throwing up there. They said it'll be about 8,000 a year. There's a scientific article about
these things will be knocking out the ozone layer as they fall.
Which our ozone layer is actually regenerated to what it was before.
People don't talk about the ozone layer anymore.
Because it came back.
It got better.
But no, he wants to fucking burn our ozone layer away with disposable fucking satellites so that then there's more of a justification to get everybody to Mars so where he can be king. You see, it's like the fucking people who keep defunding the schools and then complain about how the schools don't work because we defund them.
Why does
And then eventually it's just the pretense to privatize. It's fucking insidious.
That does happen. Why doesn't Elon Musk paint his rockets with decorative things?
Why doesn't he fucking strap his nuts to a rocket and hit fire? I want that fucker to just go.
So who are our patrons, Kenny?
Oh yeah, people who are paying to hear me fucking get real salty.
in the last 2 minutes of the episode.
I need to when I get home, I'll make some mate. I didn't drink any mate this morning.
I know you left some in Least Haunted headquarters, and it's such a mess here I couldn't find it. So sorry about that. Poor Cody.
Okay.
Do you want me to read off the Monster Squad?
No,
you got it?
No, the Monster Squadron.
You're almost there,
producers
man.
are.
Come on.
Travis Alexander.
Yeah.
The Bi Barbarian.
Am I reacting to all of them still?
Oh.
Is that a new thing, or was that a one-off?
I think that was a one-off.
Okay, that's a one-off.
Okay.
I'm not. Just imagine me nodding and smiling with every name. Go ahead.
Travis Alexander, the Bi Barbarian, Rachel Krieger, Tom Dahl, Justin Duckham, Kelly Flynn, Gunnar Franks, Carla Harrington, Havelock, New Jared, Ken, Brian Lamb, TJ Levenhagen, Alicia Overton, Jordan Ramey, Blue Roan, and Tatum.
Thank you all for helping us out. We love you.
Watch out for giant squid.
Watch out for the Krakens, everybody. And
not the Krakens.
Watch out for Kraken, everybody, as you go to the beach on these hot days.
Kraken,
keep an eye
singular, out. The Kraken. Let's see, Cracker.
Oh, yeah, we never did. Yeah,
so
okay.
The Kraken Kraken is the crack. Cracker would be cracks.
Yeah.
And if you're talking about the a whole group of them.
Yeah.
But like,
look at all that flock of
Kraken. No. Kraken. Yeah, Kraken.
Krakena.
Yeah.
Nice.
Which means the Kraken.
What was that poem? Let me see if it's short. I'll read it. Tennyson. What was it?
Yeah. It is Tennyson the Kraken, and I got it right here. It's not long.
Okay, I'll read it.
It's right here.
Sweet. All right, so
and then everybody's also gonna get a song at the end. Also about I'm gonna do the cephalopod love song.
Oh, nice, excellent. Okay, so I'm gonna read you all a poem, and then we're gonna do a Sequoidea song. So let's sign off now.
Oh yeah. Okay. So until next time, the only thing that's haunted
is you, the Kraken. Below the thunders of the upper deep, far, far beneath the abysmal sea, his ancient, dreamless, uninvaded sleep, the Kraken sleepeth. Faintest sunlights flee. Above his shadowy sides, above him swell huge sponges of millennial growth and height, and far away into the sickly light, from many a wondrous grot and secret cell, unnumbered and enormous polypi winnow with giant fins the slumbering green. Here hath he lain for ages and will lie, battening upon huge sea worms in his sleep, until the latter fire shall heat the deep. Then once by man and angels to be seen, in roaring he shall rise, and on the surface die. The Kraken. 1830 by Alfred Lord Tennyson.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wanted to write a song with Reykjavik in it, so I went and got a pen. Well, this only took a minute. Now you will sing along to my stupid song, the one with Reykjavik in it. I always wanted to read a book on squid, so I went to my library and that's just what I did. Now I know all about cephalopods and shit, 'cause I read a book on squid. I always wanted to be in love with a girl just like you, and now that I found you, well, that's what I will do. I'll put you in a song about Iceland and squid, and hey, wouldn't you know it, well, that's what I just did. The wide 7 seas in a tiny raft made of limbs, twigs, and leaves. Maybe I'd get lost in the maelstrom of your eye. Maybe I'd capsize, yeah, maybe I would die. Or maybe I'd get eaten up by a giant squid that gets caught and sold in old Reykjavik. That's the way it goes in my head, I suppose. I write stupid love songs to wipe my bloody nose, to fill up my heart 'cause it's so full of holes. I'll fill it up with songs about Iceland and cephalopods. And if you lost your mind like you know that I just did, I'll see you on the dark side of the squid.
And I'm going to release the Kraken.
Well, good.
The Least Haunted podcast is recorded before a dead studio audience.
It's not too bad.
And is a
in
presentation
here.
of Sequoidea Productions, LLC.
Do you think that would? Well, but it has noise.